There is no other difference between us and all other societies in the past, except equality before the law. So they believed that that holy institution should be spread throughout all the people in society, anyone in society who could think, and they thought blacks were part of that. They thought they were human beings. So that was one of the attitudes about the Constitution. I think a pretty damn admirable attitude. The Southerners had a different agenda. They believed the Constitution could be used to extend not so much the fact of slavery, but its principle, because they had the right to their way of life in the Constitution. I don't know, it's a weak argument. He doesn't make a good argument for it here. We've just made a really strong case for the other side, but he just says that they want to extend slavery and, quote, moreover, they possessed in the Democratic Party and in the Taney Court instruments whereby their view of the Constitution could be made to prevail. It doesn't justify it. They were frustrated in this endeavor by their impetuosity and by their divisions. That is the story of the 1850s. So it doesn't seem there's a case that can be made for the Southern side. I haven't seen a good case, and the only tragedy about the Civil War is that it was so bloody. One of the best ways probably to mediate the bloodiness of the Civil War would have been if Lincoln would have allowed free speech and criticism and stuff. Then there might have been a more constructive debate about how the war should be carried out. Then there might have been people come to the forefront. There might have been a STEM citizen who came to the forefront who gave some of the best military plans, and the military used them, you know. But stifling free speech, especially in a time of dire emergency, strikes me as bad business, even though it's always done. But to say that it's always done is a very inane comment. So we're done now with Paul Johnson's History of America. I think we can appreciate at this point that there was religious fervor behind the slavery question. There was a lot of conviction going clear back into the 18-teens and 20s that this could and probably will lead to a very cataclysmic civil war. It will split the Union. Now we go to Lost Men of American History. This is by Stuart Holbrook. You may have seen me quote from this book before. There's the dust jacket. It's just such a ugly dust jacket. I like a book without a dust jacket better. It's got a more respectable appearance. Okay, so this is copyright 1946, 10th printing 1965, and that's the printing from which we take now page 159. Okay, so we just join in the middle of a paragraph, in the middle of the chapter, and we're going to take about a page here. Quote, "In the Senate, Charles Sumner of the Bay State was abusing the South and Southerners in the most intemperate language he could muster, and Sumner's poisonous vocabulary had few equals. And for the best part of 30 years, or from about 1830 onward, Congress could accomplish almost nothing without consideration of its effect on the growing tension between the North and the South. There's just about everything was affected by us." Now that's a dangerous omen for us today, because the Republicans and Democrats are not divided on anything, and that's probably a recipe for dictatorship, as much as this was a recipe for civil war. But from about 1830 onwards, it just couldn't do anything. It was just crippled about this, because of everything was affected by. Did they view it from a northern or a southern perspective? Much of its energies, in fact, had to be devoted solely to the fight to, quote, keep the balance of slave and free states. The battle in Congress resulted in resounding compromises that settled nothing, right? The Missouri Compromise. We'll keep on going. We'll just keep it balanced, right? And the 3/5 Compromise and stuff. If it did settle something, then why did it end in civil war? In 1820, the Missouri Compromise dedicated the major portion of Louisiana Territory to freedom, the smaller portion being left to slavery. The Compromise of 1850 abolished slavery in the District of Columbia, all of 70 square miles. But made it much easier for masters to secure return of slaves who had run away to the north. Now, at the time, can you imagine the political hubbub? This act was passed and they said, inside of the nation's capital, slavery is illegal. No more slave markets, no more slave trading, no more slaves in America's capital. 1850. It's pretty late for them to do that, but finally they did it. Now, tagged on with this law was a provision that if slaves run away, there's certain assistance and stuff from the government, and certain things are allowable in the courts to do certain things to get the slave to go back. Compensation and assistance from the law and so on. So that's tagged on, but this is just like anything today, the Patriot Act or whatever, and everybody says, oh, we finally were able to, we're going to be able to take care of this Bin Laden thing and stop 9/11 from happening again. And actually it's just adding to the tension and subtracting from our strength. That's the sort of thing here. Allowing, now slavery is illegal in D.C., Washington, D.C., but runaway slaves can be arrested on the streets in Boston, jailed, put on a boat, taken back to the South, to live in chains, or to be whipped. That was made easier, more legal, with the same act that abolished slavery in Washington, D.C. It's 1850. This is too much. You can't take it. Slavery is too detestable an institution to say that it can be someone else's way of life. Anyone who claims it is their way of life to put somebody in a pen and whip them can be pissed on. 4 years later, by the Kansas and Nebraska Act, the Compromise of 1820 was abrogated, and the whole of the vast interior of the continent, which had been dedicated to freedom in 1820, was thrown open to slavery, if and when the settlers and squatters so desired. You can feel the tension build, because we know what it led to. This reopened the question, which had long been regarded as closed, and set the scene for bloody Kansas. The open question was answered in favor of slavery in 1857, when the Supreme Court of the United States held in the case of one Dred Scott that the Missouri Compromise really had been null and void from the day it was passed, and that Congress had no power whatever to exclude slavery from the territories. The Dred Scott case might be taken from that later. Now at this point we're actually finished with Holbrook's Lost Men of American History, College Outline Series, Outline History of the United States to 1865. We are going to go to page 131. Oh, this is by Kraut, published in 1940 by Barnes & Noble. I'm going to go to page 131. Now we've just heard a bit about Bleeding Kansas, about how bad it was in Kansas. Let's have a bit more. The anti-slavery, as well as the pro-slavery forces, sent their representatives into Kansas. The pro-slavery men, by fraudulent methods, elected a majority of the territorial legislature in 1855 and established a government at Shawnee Mission. It says by fraudulent methods, but it doesn't say more. The Free Soil element held a convention at Topeka and framed a Free State Constitution. The Pierce administration supported the Shawnee government. So the government of the United States supported the one that supported slavery. Now that's got to really piss off the people who don't want any more territory for slavery to exist in. They don't want humans to get whipped. They don't want humans to be subjugated from the day they're born to the day they die, in order so that another human can eat, sleep, and clothe themselves a little bit better. They don't care for it. And they know that it's inefficient. They know it actually destroys wealth. It doesn't help. It's not creative. So they just don't care for this institution. They go into Kansas saying, you're not going to set slavery up here. And the slave people want to come in and set slavery up. The tension within the territory led to the Civil War in 1856. Civil War in the small c, small w